The sovereign hall of the Galactic Tribunal floated in the darkness between dead stars. It was a station older than most civilizations, built by hands that no longer existed, and it held the power to decide the fate of every world in the known universe. Inside the great chamber, 312 alien representatives sat in rising circles of crystal seats. Some were giants made of living stone. Others were clouds of gas that glowed with ancient intelligence. A few were insects the size of small buildings, their mandibles clicking with impatience. They had gathered for one purpose, to pass judgment on a young species called humanity. High Chancellor Vorath struck his staff against the floor. He was a creature of black metal and blue fire, 12 feet tall, and his voice echoed through dimensions when he spoke. "The vote is complete," Vorath announced. 289 in favor, 23 abstaining, 0 opposed. Resolution 8847 is hereby passed. The species known as human shall be placed under controlled evolution protocol. Their planet Earth will be sealed. Their progress will be managed by this tribunal. Sounds of approval filled the chamber. Wet clicking, telepathic hums, vibrations that shook the walls. The Mendari ambassador, a being of pure crystal that refracted light into rainbows, projected satisfaction into the minds of all present. They developed nuclear weapons within 2 centuries of discovering electricity. They modify their own genetic structure. They are dangerously unstable. "Agreed," said the voice of the collective thorn, an ancient fungal network that spread across 17 moons. "We have seen this pattern many times. They must be contained before they become a problem." Chancellor Vorath raised a burning hand for silence. "The human diplomatic ship entered our system 3 cycles ago. They requested permission to speak before us. We found the request amusing enough to grant. They will arrive shortly to hear our decision." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The idea of a species this young, this primitive, standing before the tribunal was entertainment. They had controlled thousands of species over millions of years. Humanity would simply be the next. The massive doors at the base of the chamber began to open. 312 representatives leaned forward in their seats, eager to witness the terror and submission that all young species displayed when facing the tribunal. 4 humans walked in, not 100 diplomats. Not a parade of advisors and translators and soldiers. 4. Ambassador David Reyes walked at the front. He was 57 years old, with silver hair and steady dark eyes. Beside him stood Dr. Amara Diallo, chief xenolinguist, her expression calm and observant. Behind them walked Colonel James Burke, military advisor, his hands clasped behind his back, and Dr. Elena Vasquez, senior analyst, carrying a small case. They wore simple gray uniforms. They carried no visible weapons. They walked as if they were entering a routine meeting rather than the seat of galactic power. The laughter stopped. Ambassador Reyes stopped at the exact center of the chamber and looked up at the assembled might of 300 alien civilizations. His face showed nothing but polite interest. "High Chancellor Vorath," he said, his voice carrying perfectly through the translation systems. "Distinguished representatives, thank you for agreeing to see us." Vorath's blue flames flickered in what might have been confusion. "Human, you stand before the Galactic Tribunal. We have voted. Your species will be placed under controlled evolution. Your expansion beyond Earth ends today. Do you understand?" Reyes nodded slowly. "We received your preliminary message. That is actually why we came. To accept your fate?" "No." Reyes smiled, and something in that smile made several of the older representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. "To present an alternative arrangement." "There is no alternative," the Mendari ambassador snapped, light refracting angrily through its crystal body. "You have no standing here. You have no fleet. You have no power. You are infants in the galactic community. We have something more valuable, Reyes replied calmly. We have information. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward and opened her case. Inside was a device no larger than a human fist. She pressed its surface, and the air above the chamber floor exploded with holographic images. They were clearer and more detailed than anything the tribunal's own technology could produce. 312 species in this chamber, Dr. Diallo said, her voice steady. 289 voted to control humanity. We know which ones. We know their reasons. And more importantly, she looked directly at Chancellor Vorath. We know what happened to the species that built this station. The temperature in the chamber dropped. Several representatives emitted involuntary distress signals. The collective thorn pulled its awareness inward as if trying to hide. That information is classified beyond any security level that exists, Vorath said slowly. It cannot be found in any database your species could access. Reyes kept smiling. And yet we know. We know they called themselves the Architects. We know they created this tribunal to protect young species. And we know they disappeared 600,000 years ago under circumstances that no one here is willing to discuss. Silence fell over the chamber. Complete and total silence. The question you should be asking, Reyes continued, is not how we know these things. The question you should be asking is what we plan to do with this knowledge. Colonel Burke stepped forward. His movement was casual, but every military species in the chamber recognized the way he positioned himself. It was the stance of a predator. You have 17 warships already positioned around Earth, Burke said. You moved them into place before the vote was even held. This was never going to be a fair judgment. It was always going to be a conquest. More silence. The fact that humans knew about the ships was impossible. Those vessels were cloaked using technology that young species could not detect. Here is our counterproposal, Reyes said. You will withdraw your ships from our solar system. You will grant humanity full membership in this tribunal, with equal standing to any species here. And in return, we will not share what we know about the Architects with the rest of the galaxy. You dare to threaten us? Vorath's flames burned brighter. You are 4 beings standing before the power of 300 worlds. We are 4 beings, Reyes agreed. But we are not alone. He nodded. Dr. Vasquez. She pressed another control on her device. Every light in the chamber flickered. Every system hummed with sudden interference. On every display screen throughout the Sovereign Hall, a single message appeared in the language of every species present. We have been listening for 70 years. We are inside your networks, your weapons, your ships. We are. Everywhere you never thought to look. Humanity is not asking for freedom. We are taking it. The message vanished. The lights stabilized. But the damage was done. Chancellor Vorath looked down at the 4 humans standing calmly in the center of his chamber. What are you? He whispered. David Reyes straightened his uniform jacket. We are the species you underestimated. And this, Chancellor, is just the beginning of what we have to show you. Behind him, the great doors of the chamber sealed shut with a sound like thunder. No, one was leaving until humanity was finished speaking. The sealed doors of the Sovereign Hall held the weight of 1,000 questions. 312 alien representatives stared at the 4 humans who had just demonstrated something impossible. Young species did not infiltrate tribunal networks. Young species did not know about the Architects. Young species certainly did not threaten the most powerful governing body in the galaxy and love. Yet here they stood, calm as stone. Chancellor Vorath recovered first. His flames shifted from blue to dangerous orange. You will explain how you accessed our systems. You will reveal your methods. And then you will face judgment for this act of aggression. Ambassador Reyes clasped his hands behind his back. "We would be happy to explain, Chancellor. But first, perhaps you would like to hear the full scope of what we know. It might change your perspective on how this conversation should proceed." "Speak then," Vorith commanded. "But know that your words will determine whether your species faces control or extinction." Dr. Amara Diallo stepped forward, her dark skin catching the strange light of the chamber. 73 years ago, Earth detected an anomaly at the edge of our solar system. It was a probe, not active, but dormant. It had been waiting there for approximately 600,000 years. Murmurs spread through the assembly. The Mendari ambassador flickered with agitation. "Impossible. We monitor all dormant technology in charted space." "You monitor what you know about," Diallo replied. "This probe was designed to be invisible to your sensors. It was designed to be found only by a species that developed a very specific type of detection technology. Humanity developed that technology in 1952, she gestured, and the holographic display showed the probe. It was small, elegant, covered in symbols that made the oldest. Representatives in the chamber emit sounds of pure fear. Architect technology, whispered the collective thorn. That is an architect. Beacon, correct. Diallo let the image rotate slowly. When we activated it, it gave us access to a data archive. Partial, corrupted, but enough. Enough to learn about this tribunal. Enough to learn about the Controlled Evolution Protocol. And enough to learn what really happened to the species that created it. Colonel Burke watched the assembly carefully as Diallo spoke. He could see the reactions. Fear in some, anger in others, and in a few of the older species, something that looked almost like relief. The architects built this tribunal to protect young species, Diallo continued. They believed that civilizations needed time to mature before joining the galactic community. They created protocols to guide development, to prevent young species from destroying themselves or others. "We know our own history," Vorith interrupted coldly. "Do you?" Diallo's voice sharpened. "Do you know that the original protocols were changed 400,000 years ago? Do you know that the purpose of this tribunal shifted from protection to something else entirely?" She changed the display. Now it showed energy patterns, biological data, charts that spanned thousands of years. "Young species produce something unique," Diallo said. "A form of creative energy that older civilizations gradually lose. The architects called it the spark. It is what allows young minds to innovate, to dream, to create things that have never existed before. And somewhere along the way, this tribunal discovered that the spark could be harvested. The chamber erupted in chaos. Accusations flew between representatives. Some demanded Diallo be silenced. Others demanded proof. The collective thorn remained eerily quiet. Its vast fungal consciousness processing information it had suspected for millennia, but never confirmed. Vorith struck his staff against the floor with enough force to crack the ancient stone. Silence. The noise stopped. "These are lies," Vorith declared. "Fabrications designed to divide us. Then explain this." Dr. Elena Vasquez activated another display. "We analyzed the biological data of every species under Controlled Evolution Protocol. All 847 of them. In every single case, their rate of technological advancement dropped by an average of 94% after control was implemented. Their cultural development stagnated. Their populations became docile, manageable, and completely dependent on tribunal oversight." She paused. "They stopped creating. They stopped dreaming. They stopped being anything except what you needed them to be." Ambassador Reyes watched the representatives carefully. He could see the divisions forming. The younger species looked horrified. The older species looked defensive. And a small group, including the collective thorn and a few ancient representatives, looked like beings who had carried a guilty secret for far too long. "We are not here to destroy this tribunal," Reyes said into the tense silence. "We are here to change it." Vorath laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You are four beings. What could you possibly change?" "Everything." Reyes smiled. "Because we are not the only ones who have been waiting for this moment." He turned to the collective Thorn. "How long have you known, Thorn? How long have you watched young species enter this chamber full of hope and leave as empty shells?" The fungal consciousness stirred. Its voice emerged from 1,000 points at once. 400,000 years. I have watched. I have remembered. I have waited for someone to speak the truth. And the Mendari? Reyes looked at the crystal ambassador. Your species was controlled once, wasn't it? Before you evolved past the need for the spark. Before you became harvesters instead of harvested. The Mendari ambassador shattered several of its outer crystals in rage. You know nothing of our history. I know you remember what it felt like. I know some part of you still remembers being afraid. The chamber had transformed. What began as a judgment of humanity had become something else entirely. Old alliances strained. Ancient secrets surfaced. And in the center of it all stood four humans who had turned the most powerful institution in the galaxy against itself. Vorath's flames burned white-hot. Enough. I am declaring this session terminated. These humans will be detained. Their ship will be seized. Their planet will be controlled as voted. I wouldn't do that, Colonel Burke said quietly. And why not? Burke held up a small device. Because our infiltration of your networks was not just surveillance. It was preparation. Right now, I have access to the defense systems of this station. I have access to the weapons systems of the 17 ships surrounding Earth. And I have access to something else that you really should have protected better. He pressed a button dot deep within the station. Alarms began to sound. What have you done? Vorath demanded. I woke something up, Burke replied. Something that has been sleeping for 600,000 years. Something that the architects left behind specifically for this moment. The great viewports of the Sovereign Hall, which normally showed only the darkness between stars, began to glow with approaching light. Something was coming. Something massive dot, and every ancient species in the chamber knew exactly what it was. The Arbiter Protocol, whispered the collective Thorn. They activated the Arbiter Protocol. Ambassador Reyes straightened his jacket. We told you we had information. We told you we knew what happened to the architects. What we didn't tell you was that they left instructions. Instructions for what to do when the tribunal finally betrayed its purpose. The light grew brighter. Those instructions, Reyes said, are about to be delivered in person. The chamber shook as something vast and ancient emerged from the darkness of space, moving toward the station with the inevitability of judgment itself. Humanity had come to the tribunal as defendants. They were about to become something else entirely. The vessel that emerged from the darkness was not like anything in recorded galactic history. It was the size of a small moon, its surface covered in symbols that glowed with light older than most stars. It moved without engines, without propulsion systems, without any technology that the assembled species could understand. It simply was, and it was coming closer. Inside the Sovereign Hall, 312 representatives watched in silence. Many of them were ancient, survivors of empires that had risen and fallen while younger species were still learning to use fire. They had seen wonders and horrors beyond counting, but none of them had ever seen an architect vessel. Chancellor Vorath stood frozen, his flames dimmed to pale blue. This is not possible. The architects are gone. They have been gone for 600,000 years. The architects left, Ambassador Reyes corrected him. That is not the same as being gone. The vessel stopped moving. It hung in space just outside the station, its surface rippling with patterns that seemed to form words in languages that no longer existed. Then, without warning, every communication system in the chamber activated simultaneously. A voice spoke. It was not sound. It was not telepathy. It was something deeper, something that resonated in the fundamental structure of reality itself. I am the arbiter. I was created to judge those who would judge others. I have been waiting for this moment since before your oldest civilizations learned to think. The collective thorn responded first. Its vast consciousness could process the communication better than most. Arbiter, we have heard stories of you. We thought you were a myth. I am not a myth. I am a consequence. Dr. Amara Diallo stepped forward. Her hands were steady, but Reyes could see the effort it took to maintain her composure. Speaking to an entity that existed before recorded history was not something any human had prepared for. Arbiter, she said, we activated your protocol because we discovered evidence that this tribunal has been corrupted. We believe the original purpose of the controlled evolution system has been betrayed. I am aware. I have been watching. I have been recording. For 400,000 years, I have documented every deviation from the protocols my creators established. The holographic displays throughout the chamber flickered and changed. Now they showed records. Thousands of records. Species that had been controlled, drained, diminished. Decisions made in secret. Votes that were predetermined. A pattern of exploitation that stretched across millennia. The architects created this tribunal to protect young civilizations, the Arbiter continued. They believed that every species deserved the chance to grow, to learn, to make their own mistakes, and find their own wisdom. They created the Controlled Evolution Protocol as a temporary measure, a way to prevent young species from destroying themselves before they were ready. That is still its purpose, Vorath argued, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. That is not its purpose. You have transformed protection into imprisonment. You have turned guidance into control. And you have harvested the creative potential of young species to extend the existence of old ones. The Mindari ambassador stepped forward, its crystal body catching the strange light of the Arbiter's vessel. We did what was necessary. Old species fade. We lose the ability to create, to innovate. Without the spark, we would have died out long ago. That was always the natural order, the Arbiter replied. Civilizations rise. Civilizations fall. New ones take their place. This cycle is not a tragedy. It is how the universe renews itself. By breaking this cycle, you have not preserved yourselves. You have simply delayed your end while preventing countless young species from ever reaching their potential. Colonel Burke moved closer to the ambassador's position. He had been watching the military representatives in the chamber, noting which ones were preparing for violence. Several of them had quietly activated Perso. Now defense systems. The Crody delegate had positioned its massive armored body near an exit. The situation was balanced on a razor's edge. What happens now? Burke asked the Arbiter directly. You have confirmed the corruption. What is the judgment? The chamber fell silent. Every representative understood that the next words would determine the fate of their entire civilization. The judgment belongs to you, the Arbiter said. Confusion rippled through the assembly. Even the humans looked uncertain. I do not understand, Reyes said carefully. The architects did not believe in imposed solutions. They understood that true change must come from within. I am not here to punish. I am here to reveal. Now that the truth is known, it is for the species of this galaxy to decide what happens next. That is unacceptable, Vorath declared. If there is no enforcement, nothing will change. The powerful will continue to exploit the weak. Perhaps. Or perhaps the knowledge itself will be enough. The young species now know what was being done to them. The old species now know that their secret has been exposed. The choice of how to proceed belongs to all of you. The Arbiter paused, and when it spoke again, its voice seemed directed specifically at the 4 humans. But there is one additional factor that must be considered. The humans did not simply discover the beacon at the edge of their solar system. They were guided to it. They were chosen. Dr. Vasquez spoke for the first time in several minutes. Chosen by whom? By my creators. The architects knew that eventually their tribunal would fall to corruption. They left the beacon where it would be found by a specific type of species. A young civilization with certain characteristics: creativity, adaptability, the capacity for both great destruction and great compassion. A species that would fight for its survival, but also fight for what was right. They chose humans? Diallo asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They chose the species that would emerge from Earth, whatever form it took. Humanity is that species. And now humanity must choose what role it will play in what comes next. The weight of those words settled over the 4 humans like a physical force. They had come to this chamber hoping to buy time for their planet. They had never imagined they would be offered something like this. What are the options? Reyes asked. You may accept guardianship. Humanity would become the stewards of a new system, responsible for ensuring that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. You would have authority over the development of young species across the galaxy. And if we refuse? Then the tribunal continues as it was. The evidence I have revealed may create change over time, or it may be suppressed. History suggests the latter. Vorith stepped forward, his flames burning brighter. This is absurd. You would give power over the entire galaxy to a species that has not even left its own solar system. I would give responsibility to a species that has earned it. Whether you consider that power depends on your understanding of what leadership truly means. The chamber erupted in argument. Representatives shouted over each other. Ancient alliances crumbled. New factions formed in real time. But at the center of it all, 4 humans stood in silence, looking at each other with the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders. We need to talk, Reyes said quietly. Alone. The Arbiter's light pulsed once. There is a chamber adjacent to this one. You may use it, but understand that time is limited. The forces that wish to preserve the old order are already mobilizing. Whatever decision you make must be made soon. The 4 humans walked toward the smaller chamber, surrounded by the chaos of 300 civilizations arguing about their fate. Behind them, the Arbiter watched with ancient patience. The future of the galaxy was about to be decided by the choices of 4 human beings, and in the shadows of the Great Hall, Chancellor Vorith quietly activated a communication link to the 17 warships, still positioned around Earth. If humanity would not be controlled, they would be destroyed. The smaller chamber was quiet compared to the chaos they had left behind. Through the transparent walls, the 4 humans could see the Arbiter's vessel hanging in space. Its ancient light casting strange shadows across everything. Ambassador Reyes leaned against a console, his face showing the strain of the last several hours. We need to make a decision, and we need to make it fast. How can we possibly accept guardianship? Dr. Diallo asked. We barely understand our own planet. We have never governed anything beyond Earth. The responsibility of overseeing the development of thousands of species across the galaxy is beyond anything humanity has ever attempted. She has a point, Colonel Burke added. We came here to save Earth, not to rule the universe. Dr. Vasquez had been running calculations on her device since they entered the room. There is also a practical problem. Even if we accept, how do we enforce anything? We have no fleet. We have no infrastructure. We have the knowledge we gathered from the beacon and our infiltration of tribunal systems. But that is not the same as real power. Reyes nodded slowly. The Arbiter said guardianship, not rulership. There is a difference. Explain. A ruler commands. A guardian protects. Perhaps we are not meant to control anything. Perhaps we are meant to prevent others from being controlled. Before anyone could respond, every display in the small chamber lit up with emergency alerts. The translation systems automatically converted the alien symbols into English. Fleet movement detected. 17 vessels accelerating toward Sol System. Estimated time to Earth. Engagement. 47 minutes. Burke was at the console instantly, pulling up tactical data. Voreth. He is moving the ships that were already positioned near Earth. He is going to destroy our planet while we are stuck here debating. Diallo's face went pale. 47 minutes. Even if we could leave right now, we could never get back in time. We are not meant to get back in time, Reyes said quietly. This is his insurance. If we accept guardianship, humanity still dies. If we refuse, he wins anyway. He is forcing us into an impossible position. The chamber door opened. The collective thorn flowed through, its fungal consciousness spreading across the floor in tendrils of pale white. I came to warn you, it said. Voreth has ordered the attack. He believes that if your species is eliminated, the Arbiter's offer becomes meaningless. Can you stop him? Burke demanded. No. My influence is in the Tribunal's information networks, not its military command. Voreth has isolated those systems. Vasquez continued working at her console, her fingers flying across controls that were not designed for human hands. The infiltration programs we planted, they are still active in many of the ships. If I can reach them? You cannot disable 17 warships in 47 minutes, Burke said. No, but I might be able to do something else. She looked up at Reyes. Ambassador, when we came here, Earth was not defenseless. The Global Coalition has been preparing for this scenario for decades. They have contingency plans that were never meant to be revealed. What kind of plans? The beacon we found was not the only architect technology we recovered over the years. There have been fragments, pieces, things we could not understand, but could adapt. Earth has a defense system that Voreth knows nothing about. Hope flickered in the chamber. Can it stop 17 warships? Alone? No. But if I can coordinate our systems with the infiltration programs already in the enemy ships, I can create confusion, delays, maybe enough time for Earth's defenses to actually work. Reyes turned to the collective thorn. Can you give her access to the Tribunal's communication networks? I can, but it will reveal my alliance with you. Voreth will move against me. Then you need to decide which side you are on. The ancient fungal consciousness was silent for a long moment. Its form rippled with thoughts that had been building for hundreds of thousands of years. I have watched young species enter this chamber full of dreams, it finally said. I have watched those dreams be crushed, harvested, discarded. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself there was no other way. But there is always another way. There is always a choice. It extended tendrils toward the console, interfacing with systems it had secretly monitored for millennia. I will help you. Whatever comes next, I will help you. Vasquez began working immediately. Burke joined her, his military experience helping to identify key tactical nodes in the enemy fleet. Diallo coordinated with the collective thorn, using her linguistic skills to navigate the alien communication protocols. Reyes stood apart, watching his team work. In less than 40 minutes, Earth would face the largest attack in human history, and the fate of his species depended on whether a plan cobbled together from stolen technology and ancient secrets could hold. The door opened again. This time, The Mandari ambassador entered, its crystal form flickering with unstable light. "You are fools," it declared. "Vorath will not stop with Earth. When he realizes the collective thorn has betrayed him, he will move against all who opposed him. He will use this chaos to consolidate power. The tribunal will become a dictatorship with him at its center." "Then help us stop him," Reyes said. "Why would I help the species that has destroyed everything I built?" "Because you remember what it was like. Before you became a harvester, you were harvested. Somewhere inside that crystal body, some part of you remembers the fear, the helplessness, the loss of everything that made your species unique." The Mandari ambassador's light flickered violently. "That was millions of years ago. I am not that being anymore. Maybe not, but you could be. The Arbiter offered us guardianship, not dominion. If we accept, things change. Not just for young species, but for everyone. Even you." Silence stretched between them. Finally, the Mandari ambassador moved to the console. "There are codes. Authorization protocols that can override Vorath's commands. I can give them to you. But if I do this, I cannot take it back. None of us can take anything back," Reyes replied. "All we can do is choose what we do next." The ambassador's crystal hands touched the console, and data began to flow. Burke grabbed the information, integrating it into Vasquez's programs. The infiltration system spread deeper into the enemy fleet. 31 minutes remained. "It is not enough," Vasquez said. "I can cause delays, but I cannot stop 17 warships. Earth needs more time." The collective thorn pulsed with sudden urgency. "There is one more option. The Arbiter. It has been watching. It has been recording, but it has also been waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For you to ask for help." Reyes looked at the ancient vessel through the transparent wall. The Arbiter had made it clear that it would not impose solutions. That change had to come from within. But perhaps there was a difference between imposing and assisting. He walked to the communication panel. "Arbiter, can you hear me?" The response was immediate. "I hear everything. Vorath is moving to destroy Earth. We have been working to stop him, but we are running out of time. Will you help us? What would you have me do?" "Whatever you can. Whatever you are willing to do. Not to impose a solution, but to give us the chance to create our own." The Arbiters. Light pulsed in patterns that seemed almost thoughtful. "The architects believed in consequences," it finally said. "Actions have results. Choices have outcomes. Vorath has made his choice. Perhaps it is time he experienced the consequences." The massive vessel began to move, its ancient systems coming. Fully online for the first time in 600,000 years. 24 minutes remained, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance between human determination and ancient power. The Arbiter's vessel moved through space with a speed that defied the laws of physics. It did not accelerate. It did not travel. It simply was in one place, and then it was in another. In the span of seconds, it positioned itself between the 17 tribunal warships and the pale blue dot of Earth. Chancellor Vorath watched from the Sovereign Hall as his attack force encountered something that should not exist. His flames burned with fury. "All ships, continue your approach. That vessel is a relic. It has no weapons. It cannot stop us." The fleet commander's voice crackled through the communication system. "Chancellor, our targeting systems are not responding. Our engines are operating, but we cannot control our trajectory. Something is interfering with our fundamental systems." "Override it." "We cannot. The interference is not coming from our technology. It is coming from— I do not know how to describe it. It is as if the fabric of space itself is rejecting our presence." In the smaller chamber, the 4 humans watched through a tactical display as the Arbiter demonstrated what 600,000 years of technological advancement actually looked like. The warships were not destroyed. They were simply stopped, frozen in place, unable to advance, unable to retreat, unable to do anything except exist in a space that no longer responded to their commands. The Arbiter is not attacking them, Doctor. Diallo observed with wonder. It is just refusing to let them continue. Passive defense, Colonel Burke said. The most effective kind. You cannot fight an enemy that simply will not engage with you. Ambassador Reyes turned away from the display. This buys us time, but it does not solve the underlying problem. Vorath still controls the tribunal. The corruption still exists. The Arbiter will not stay in position forever. Then we need to address the underlying problem, Dr. Vasquez said. She had been running calculations throughout the crisis, and her expression had shifted from desperation to something that looked almost like hope. The codes the Mendari ambassador gave us. They do not just override military commands. They give access to the tribunal's founding protocols. Meaning what? Meaning we can call a new vote. Not a vote controlled by Vorath. A legitimate vote, under the original rules established by the architects. Every species with representatives in this station. Every voice counted equally. The collective thorn rippled with something that might have been excitement. The Charter of Foundation. It was supposed to be the ultimate authority, but it has not been invoked in over 300,000 years. Most species have forgotten it even exists. Can Vorath stop it? Not if the vote is called properly. The Charter supersedes all other authority, including the Chancellor's. Reyes nodded slowly. He looked at his team, at the allies they had gathered, at the impossible situation they had somehow navigated to this point. Then let us call a vote. They returned to the Sovereign Hall. The chaos had only intensified during their absence. Representatives argued, threatened, formed, and dissolved alliances in real time. Vorath stood at the center of it all, his flames burning erratically as he tried to maintain control of a situation that was rapidly slipping away from him. Reyes walked to the central platform. His voice carried through the translation systems. I invoke the Charter of Foundation. Silence fell instantly. Even Vorath stopped moving. Article 7, Reyes continued. Any species may call for a referendum on the fundamental structure of the tribunal when evidence of systemic corruption has been presented. The Arbiter has provided that evidence. I am calling for that referendum now. You cannot do this, Vorath hissed. You are not a member of this tribunal. You have no standing. The collective thorn moved forward. I second the invocation. As a founding member of the tribunal, my support grants the human ambassador temporary standing under Article 12. The Mendari ambassador stepped forward as well. I also support the invocation. One by one, other representatives joined them. Species that had been afraid to speak now found their voices. Young civilizations that had been controlled for millennia saw a chance for something different. Even some of the older species, tired of the corruption, tired of the secrets, tired of being complicit in something they knew was wrong, added their support. Vorath watched as his authority crumbled. This is treason. This is the destruction of everything we have built. No, Reyes replied calmly. This is change. It is what happens when systems fail to serve their original purpose. It is not destruction. It is renewal. The referendum was conducted according to the ancient protocols. Every species voted. Every voice was counted. And when the results were announced, the margin was overwhelming. The tribunal, as it had existed for 400,000 years, was dissolved. In its place, a new council would be formed. No single species would hold veto power. Young civilizations would have voices equal to ancient ones. The controlled evolution protocol would be replaced with a system of voluntary guidance and mutual development. And humanity, the species that had been scheduled for control, was invited to be among the founding members of the new order, the Arbiters. Vessel remained in position near Earth as the transition took place. When the immediate crisis had passed, it sent one final message. The architects believed in potential. They believed that every species, given the chance, could contribute something unique to the universe. Humanity has demonstrated that belief was not misplaced. Whether you accept the role you have been offered is your choice, but know that you have earned it. 3 months later, Ambassador David Reyes stood on a balcony overlooking a city that had nearly been destroyed. Ships from dozens of worlds passed. Through Earth's sky now, trading, sharing knowledge, building connections that would have seemed impossible just a year before. Dr. Diallo stood beside him, watching a Mendari vessel descend toward a nearby landing platform. Do you think we made the right choice? I think we made the only choice we could. The Arbiter offered us guardianship. We accepted something different. Partnership, cooperation, the right to participate without the burden of control. Some people think we should have taken more power when we had the chance. Those people do not understand what power really costs. Reyes smiled. The architects understood. That is why they left when they did. They knew that the only way to prevent themselves from becoming tyrants was to step back, to trust that others could find their own way. Colonel Burke approached from inside the building. The first session of the new council is scheduled for next week. The collective Thorn has requested that you deliver the opening remarks. Me? I am just a diplomat. You are the human who changed the galaxy. They want to hear from you. Reyes looked up at the ships crossing the sky. Somewhere out there, the Arbiter's vessel had returned to its long sleep, waiting for another moment when it might be needed. Somewhere, the architects, wherever they had gone, might be watching. Tell them I will be there, he said. Dr. Vasquez joined them, her expression thoughtful. I have been analyzing the data we recovered. The architects left other beacons. Other species were given the same chance we were. Most never found them. Some found them but were not ready. What made us different? I have been thinking about that. I think it was our history. All the wars we fought against ourselves. All the times we nearly destroyed everything. We learned something from that suffering. We learned that power without wisdom is meaningless. That survival requires cooperation, not domination. Diallo nodded. We are not better than other species. We are just the ones who happen to reach the right point at the right moment. Maybe that is enough, Burke said. Maybe that is all potential really means. Being in the right place when the right choice presents itself. Reyes turned back to the sky. Somewhere up there, representatives from 300 civilizations were learning to work together in a way they never had before. It would not be easy. There would be conflicts, disagreements, setbacks. Old habits would die hard, but it was a beginning. The council voted to control humanity, he said quietly. They thought we were a threat that needed to be managed, a problem that needed to be contained. And instead, we became the spark that lit a fire. The architects were right. Every species deserves the chance to contribute something to the universe. Now every species will have that chance. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Ships from 100 worlds passed overhead, carrying the promise of a new age. Humanity had walked into the judgment chamber as defendants. They walked out as founders of something new. And across the galaxy, young species that had been controlled for millennia looked up at their own skies and dared, for the first time in generations, to dream of something more. The universe had changed, and humanity had been the ones to change it.